Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our third session today of today's Leader Talk, L&D's role in building skills-based organizations, sponsored by Credible, Culture Partners, InfoPro Learning, the Regis Company, and OpenSesame. So again, thank you for everyone who is actively joining us. I appreciate having you here today. I am Liz, the Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here. So before we get started, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's session. So for this session, please feel free to use that chat window for any comments as well as questions and or put them in the Q&A panel. We will be having a very interactive session, so you can kind of plug your questions throughout and we will address those as we're going along. And once the session ends, you will receive a brief survey. It will appear in your browser. Please take a moment to share your feedback on the session and speakers. And all of our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us that will include the link to on-demand session for you to share with your team. Now, if this is your first event, we would love to welcome you. We exist to make connections among learning and development professionals, and we offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D, like live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, and our podcast. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platforms so we can continue the conversation. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker for today's session. As a former VP of Learning and Development for a Fortune 500 organization, Vince Martinez brings over 25 years of experience in facilitating, training, and business development, as well as certification as a master trainer in consulting, selling, and developmental coaching. He has worked with companies around the world in a wide variety of industries, including retail and education, IT, nonprofit, and publishing sectors. So with that, Vince, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Liz. It is wonderful to be with all of you. Great to have you join us. I'm looking forward to today. So we'll share our screen here as we jump in. Looking forward to the conversation today. I'm seeing a text here that says camera's a little blurry. Hopefully that's improving that. And Blair, we're not seeing your PowerPoint yet. We're just seeing your landing screen. So if you wouldn't mind sharing the PowerPoint with us. So, let us know in the chat if the camera still appears blurry. And hopefully that'll get us to the right spot. So again, good afternoon, good evening for those of you joining us in whatever places across the world. We're looking forward to the conversation today on why skill building is not delivering or driving your needed organizational or business results. So three things that we want to spend some time focused on today. Very specifically is how, while learning investment is up across the globe, we are seeing that impact still lags. Learning spending is rising. Skill models are now mainstream everywhere you go, yet impact and ROI still remain under pressure. And we're going to unpack some reasons today why that is the case. So today's takeaways that we would like for you to have. Number one, we would like for you to understand why initiatives fail. Why, despite the fact that we are spending more on these skill building initiatives, yet they still are not having lasting impact. The second area we want to focus on is why creating a culture of business acumen matters and will help close some of that gap. And then the third area is why experiential learning creates lasting and significant or meaningful change or transformational change over time. So let's start today with three numbers that begin to tell a compelling story. 96, 45, and 87%. These three numbers begin to tell a story. 96% of executives say that a growth mindset is critical for their organizational success. 45% of employees believe that they should stay with the status quo. And then finally, 87% of individuals say that their organization lacks ownership and accountability for what they need to be achieving in their organization. Now, group, as you look at these three numbers, this begins to paint a picture for us of one of the great challenges we have. And that's the fact that 96% of organizations are looking for growth, yet 45% of our employees are saying that they are very comfortable in the status quo. So as we move forward today and we look at this idea of what is this gap between learning and execution, we will unpack this in a variety of ways. So the first thing we want to look at is that this idea that skills are taught in isolation. As a former VP of Learning and Development for a Fortune 500 organization, we spent a ton of time and effort teaching skills. And we had development courses for new hires, for any sort of onboarding, leadership development courses, executive learning opportunities. We were teaching skills everywhere. Those skills were often taught in isolation and were not always directly connected back to what we were looking to accomplish. The second thing we want to consider here is that training often is not tied to operational results. In fact, what it is it's measured and tied to the things that we're looking to accomplish from a skills perspective. We need to have more crucial conversations, or we need leaders to develop these particular skills, but our training is not tied often to the operational results that we're looking to achieve. And then the third area that we see as a consistent and constant problem is that success is often measured in participation and not performance. Many of you will know exactly what I'm talking about here relative to this, and that's often we measure how many people have attended a course, whether or not we've had 96% of the organization participate in a particular skill-based training, a safety course, et cetera. And while that certainly is one measure of whether or not people have participated, it does not tie back to the performance. So participation is not performance, it is simply participation. So team, as we unpack this a little bit further, understanding the fact that if we do skill-based training, and when we do skill-based training, if our leaders, our managers, and our others are not reinforcing the needed behavior, it is likely that that skill-based training will disappear or dissipate very rapidly in a short period of time. So if you wouldn't mind, just in the chat panel, if you would you please list for me some of the things that you are doing to reinforce skill-based learning in your organization? What are some things you're doing right now to reinforce skill-based learning in your organization? And I'll look for that to show up in the chat. And Liz, if you see anything that I don't catch, please feel free to chime in here. So my organization doesn't have skill-based learning yet. Okay. Thank you, Daniel. We can talk about that, and certainly we'll unpack the idea of some of the impact of getting skill-based learning tied to performance in a meaningful way. Teachbacks, Kelly, I love that. There's teachbacks that we put in place that will help kind of reinforce what we're looking for here. We send a coaching guide. Okay, so some sort of a post skill-based learning guide or follow-up documents, and then managers, to the managers for one-on-one. We do, it looks like some work with subject matter experts and supervisors. Learning circles, we love that, Jennifer. We see learning circles all the time. And this one says companies just starting to create skill-based training. And then Jose also says first asking what has the team learned, and then reflection on that situation. So team, we're gonna unpack all of these a little bit further. And more importantly, we're going to make a connection for you today about how, while skill-based learning is a valuable area to be in, there are a few areas that, if we can get very intentional on, will allow for greater reinforcement, longer term retention, and lasting performance value for the organization. All right. So if you'll go ahead and advance, Blair, for us. Here's the transition we want to make. On the left-hand side, you see the areas we were just talking about. We teach skill with the hope that it will drive a specific result. We measure participation versus performance, and reinforcement can often be lacking at the manager or the individual level. The transition that we're talking about making here is one where we begin to move to the idea of skills are simply actions that people are having to take to deliver the needed results. The skills and the skill-based training generally are not the problem. As a matter of fact, those are very, very positive actions that are helping to deliver these results. But it ignores two simple things that you see at the bottom part of this pyramid. It ignores the fact that individuals have certain beliefs and ways of thinking, and those beliefs come from their experiences. So we call this the results pyramid on the right-hand side. And the results pyramid is a simple model for why people do the things they do. And so let's break this down a little bit further. If we simply focus on skills, or the action layer of this pyramid, to drive new results, we often ignore the fact that people have a certain way of thinking, and that thinking is based off of the experiences they have in the organization. So I bring a team together, and we're going to do a safety skills-based training. Yet the belief is that it doesn't matter what we do, that if we do something that's contrary to any of the safety protocols or procedures, that in fact I may be put on leave for a week because I've broken a policy or a procedure when it comes to safety. Now, if the belief individuals are holding is it doesn't matter how well I do the task, the minute I make a mistake, there are severe consequences for it. Often, it will cause people to approach that with a least common denominator type of an action. In other words, my belief is, if I don't follow through completely on what you asked me to do here, there are severe consequences. Yet I've got someone on the team telling me here's a better way to do a task or do something else. You can see how this begins to play out. Let me give you an example from an organization I've been working with here over the last few years. In their particular organization, there is a belief that, in fact, safety protocols or skill-based training is just a check the box item. Their belief is, in this particular organization, that executives and senior managers, senior leadership, does not actually care about the safety of the individuals. In fact, their belief is they're just doing it because of the financial implications of safety not playing out in the needed way. Now, if that's a prevailing belief that's happening in an organization, you can imagine how anytime you bring a team in to go through any skill-based training, it automatically receives some level of pushback, or people saying the only reason we're here is because they don't want to have to pay the insurance premiums. They do not want to have to fill in the gap or the narrative here relative to this. So team, if you would, just in the chat panel for me, if you had to think about your organization right now, and what are some existing beliefs that are slowing your teams or your organization down from achieving needed results? What are some beliefs that are slowing your teams or organization down in achieving needed results? For example, a belief would be everything we do here is top down. I see one here, Maryland, that says it's a temporary fix. And it's only that way, just to make sure someone doesn't get hurt or until the next thing happens. When the next shoe falls, we're going to now apply a new process. So let's just take Maryland's example here for just a moment. If the belief is this is only a temporary fix, can you imagine every new skill-based training you introduce that then has people approach it through the lens of this is only temporary? So if their belief is it's only temporary, what actions would you see them take relative to the new process, policy, procedure, or skill? They're likely not going to put it into place because it's a flavor of the day or only temporary. Looking at a few more in the chat panel here. This is the way we've always done it. Yeah, and think about this one for just a moment, team. If the belief is we've always done it this way, and someone on in the rank and file in the organization is saying it doesn't matter what they tell you to do in that training, this is the way we've always done it, so just do that and you will be fine. So what you're starting to connect to is how your trainings or your skill-based training can often be derailed, not because the skill-based training is not appropriate or not needed, but because the individuals who are part of this skill-based training are holding a set of beliefs that then will impede your ability to deliver on that needed skill-based training. And so Heather had a comment here, and I'm looking at some of these as we go along. The disruption of things will stop and we'll have a chance to catch up. Yeah, and I think that was I think it's Shandon who said that, that eventually all the chaos will slow down and then we'll have a chance to catch up. And group, I always laugh on this one. I always ask the question when people say this, when is that day? Can somebody tell me the day that the disruption or the change is going to stop in your business so we can just plan for, August 15th, we're going to be able to catch up on everything. Yeah, never was the answer in the chat panel. And so interestingly enough, group, you see how these beliefs begin to really slow us down time and time again, right? As you think about this process, I also want you to think about, as we talk about those three kind of impediments or barriers, what are some of the experiences perhaps your managers are creating or the beliefs that they're unintentionally reinforcing because we provide a skill-based training, employee goes back to their regular working day, and the manager then somehow reinforces something different than you've emphasized in the skill-based training. I'll give you a great example of this. I was working with a team recently, and they were working on how to better to seek and offer feedback. So very intentional skill-based training for mid-level leaders and others in the organization. And so they introduced some feedback loops and models into the organization. Instantly, those leaders went back and decided they would try this newfound skill-based learning. And when they got back, one of the leaders gets back to their team, seeks feedback from their manager, and their manager simply replies this way: you know what? I don't need your feedback. I just need you to do the things I'm telling you to do. Now, when that happens, and hopefully that's not happening in your organization, it will automatically derail your ability to have any skills be lasting or intentional. Yeah, a great comment there as well about the woodworker cutting wood on the tree is too busy cutting, right? And instead of looking at pausing to sharpen his axe. That's exactly right. So Blair, let's move forward here if we can on this. And here becomes the big issue, group. If you think about skills as actions, when we're not getting a desired result we want in the organization, where do we usually go? We usually go back to some additional training or very action-focused ideas. We're not getting this, so let's put in place a new process, policy, procedure to try to drive a new result. And this becomes a huge dilemma because our learning culture is simply the experiences, the beliefs, and the actions that people take. That culture is producing the results we are or are not achieving. So if people's beliefs and experiences are incongruent with the results we're needing to achieve in the organization, or they're not being reinforced in the proper way, it does not matter how much focus we put on specific actions. In fact, our best efforts will be derailed. And while we may receive a 9 out of 10 on a course, and boy, that was really valuable, the lasting impact of that will not exist. So as we move forward here, the second key point we want to land on is this idea of the role of business acumen in performance. If individuals in your organization cannot connect how whatever skill they are learning is connected to the overall performance of the organization, it is highly likely that skill will not have lasting value. Now, with that in mind, we do have a brief poll we want to put up. Liz has launched that poll for you. So how well do your employees understand how their daily decisions affect business outcomes? This is a 1 to 10. Employees fully understand on the 10 side. 1, they do not understand how their daily actions or decisions impact the business results, is what we're looking for. Seeing a lot of people chime in. We've got a 4% right now, 3% out of 10. High number of people, at 26%. It looks like I'll give you just another couple of seconds to get your responses in here. Looks like we've got about 47 out of 91 of you that are participating in the poll here. A couple more seconds, and then I can share with you the results. And Liz, I'm not sure if you can share those results globally. If not, I'll speak to them on a slightly broader basis.
I got you. Results
Perfect.
are shared.
Thank you. So what you're seeing on the screen, group, is the overall responses to how well your people connect what they do every day to the overall business outcomes. And what we know is this: if I do not understand how what I do is impacting the business, I will show up doing my very best to deliver on those things. But quite frankly, we may have people rowing the boat in quite different directions. And in our particular instance here, you see, upwards of, about 60, 70% of people that are a 6 or below in terms of this poll. So simple definition of business acumen for our conversation here today: it's an understanding of what it takes for the business to make money, an understanding of what it takes for the business to make money. So as we talk about this idea of business acumen, when every meeting, every skill-based training is directly tied to or connected to the impact it has on the business, it begins to create a transformation of an understanding of why we are doing this. We move from task-based focus, here's the skill you need to do, or here's the task you need to complete, to one that is results focused. We move from this idea of competing priorities to align teams and collaboration, because now, instead of it being viewed as a training or a flavor of the day, as we talked about earlier, people go, oh, I understand we're going through a feedback training because it's going to better help us in the delivery of a world-class customer experience, right? If we can seek more feedback from our customers, that provides insights that will allow us to ... You'll see checking the box here. We move from that to connecting training to impact. Over the last 40 years at Culture Partners, we have spent our time focused on creating these needed cultures and this idea of how do you create a culture of accountability in an organization. On the right-hand side, you'll see our model for accountability. We call this the steps to accountability. It's just a simple model of why people do the things they do and how do we get people to take greater ownership for the pieces they can control. Those 4 steps above the line: see it, own it, solve it, do it. An accountable workspace. So we move from people being reactive to proactive when we can connect them to the impact they are having on the business. And finally, we move from people just doing a lot of activity to engaging in the needed change. I see some things in the chat panel here. Malin said it's all about KPIs or metrics. Honestly, in the learning and development space where we spend so much time building skills, and on the training side, when we build skills, we are being measured more and more based off of whether or not we're helping to deliver those KPIs. So it is all about the metrics, certainly. And how do we then connect everything we do to those KPIs? Thanks, Blair. If you'll move to the next for us as well. So let me just share a brief story with you of this idea of connecting skill-based training to having lasting impact or business acumen. We have been working with the last number of years with a very large credit union in the southern part of the United States. And as you might imagine, there is a ton of skill-based training that the tellers and those who work within the credit union have every day about how they not only customer interaction, but process and procedures for how you deal with deposits and all of the things associated with banking. And so as they have been going through this training, they have deliberately started to now connect every one of those skills to a business outcome or a result. In this particular credit union, one of the results they were looking for, as you might imagine, was an increase in overall credit union membership. And they had a very large KPI or goal of doubling their membership within a selected time frame. Now, as they started to do individual skill-based training on, customer interactions, for example, or helping customers understand how to use our app for better access to their banking information and tools that are available to them. Very skill-based specific training. Every one of those skill-based trainings started with a very specific alignment to this idea of here is what result we're looking to achieve. We're looking to double our membership within X time frame. And because of that, this skill that we are working on today is specifically designed to help you in your interactions with customers to be able to continue to have members stay with us and also attract new members to the credit union. Lasting impact. Okay, so if we'll move forward, Blair here. The third item here is this idea of how do we turn experiential learning into lasting behavioral change. This phrase, experiential learning, it's all over the world right now. People have tons of different ways that they use these skill-based courses to try to create new experience. Experiences or creating new experiences alone rarely changes behavior. In fact, information transfer, here's how you do this and let's go gamify this, rarely changes behavior. So how do we create these experiences that allow information transfer to become lasting? So Yeah, I love that in the chat panel here, that experience creates understanding, application creates change. Experience creates understanding, application creates change. So here's often what experiential learning will look like. Simulations, role plays, scenario-based exercises, peer coaching. Somebody mentioned that coaching or documents, stretch assignments, business problem solving kind of workshops. Those are all examples of what experiential learning looks like. So again, here comes the transformation. And as we talk about this next slide here, team, understand the fact that there is a joint accountability in our roles. We have a role as a leader, or a role as a learner, a role as a manager. There are all these roles that exist around our organization. Yet, if we can create an experiential learning opportunity within each of these roles or responsibilities, it starts to create what we call the power of joint accountability. It's a clear understanding that my role or responsibility is not just to do the job, but my role or responsibility has an accountability for the delivery of the organizational results. And I am accountable for the experience that I create. I am accountable for the experience that I create. So what happens is the results we're not now achieving, but would achieve, come from people having an experience and an understanding of the fact that they are experience creation experts. And each one of us creates hundreds, if not thousands, of experiences every day. And so the questions we should be asking are simply this: not what's the training or what's the skill I need to teach, but what if we were to start from this standpoint of what is the belief I need my learners to hold? If we were to go back to our pyramid, this idea of beliefs drive actions. So what is the belief I need my learners to hold? So the belief I need my learners to hold, as an example, is ... I need them to believe that they have more control over membership than they believe they do as a teller. In fact, they can impact membership more than even our marketing can, based off of the experience they're creating for those who come into the credit union. So if that's the belief I need my learners to hold, then we go to the second question we should be asking, which is, what business results are we trying to move through this training? So the belief I need my tellers to hold is that they can impact our membership and our double-digit membership growth. What business result is that going to impact? It's going to impact 2x growth by this point. So now we're connecting the two. Now, the third question we need to be asking is, what experiences do learners, leaders, and others need to have or create to drive that belief? What experiences do we need to create to have to drive that belief? Again, using this example, the belief I need my tellers to hold is that they can impact membership. And in doing so, they're going to impact our 2x growth. So what experiences do I need to create for my learners in the skill-based learning environment? What experience do I need to create as a training or L&D professional for the leaders who are supporting them? Documents, guides, et cetera, that people have talked about reinforcing. Or what other experiences need to be created, and how can I help leaders or others around the organization intentionally create that experience? And Hetham says, I think that FLMs hold the biggest role in tracking and implementing L&D guidelines. The issue is, once they're cornered with a tough target, they shift to the sales mode, and that's a scary shift. Yeah, I love the way you've articulated this. The reality is, when all of a sudden we get, I love the phrase here. Think about the belief here. We get cornered with this tough target. I don't know if it can be achieved. Boy, it's really going to be difficult. we tend to shift very much into action, or as you define it here, as a sales mode. And all of a sudden, we start pushing on action, action, action. So you'll see some samples here that go to those 3 questions I talked about, group. Maybe we're working on conflict resolution as a skill. The needed belief is we need to improve alignment and communication across our teams. The business result we're trying to impact is retention or customer satisfaction. And then that ... what are the experiences I need to create for the learners, for the leaders who support them, and for others in the organization? Because when we look at this through a three-pronged approach, we stop looking at it through the idea of, did someone attend the training, but what experiences do I need to create so people are holding the needed beliefs and ultimately self-selecting the skill or the skill learning or action they're going to take to drive. So 4 questions to ask yourself as we begin to look at this idea of how do we turn action into results. The first is, will what we're asking them to do achieve the results we are looking for? I would assume the answer 99 times out of 100 is you wouldn't be pursuing a learning program or a skill-based program if you didn't believe it was going to help you achieve those desired organizational results. Then it gets to this idea of what skills do we need to teach? What belief do we want to create in our learners, leaders, and others? And ultimately, what experiences do we need learners to have? So group, as we go ahead and finish out today, there's a couple of ways over the last 40 years at Culture Partners, we have kind of embraced these principles that we're talking about today. We have a business acumen simulation that is specifically designed to help leaders, managers, sales professionals understand what it takes for the company to make money. Through a gamified opportunity, they get a chance to understand how what they do every day impacts the specific business results of the organization, and thus connects the idea of results to skill-based learning. The second area where we put a very intentional focus is around the concept of accountability, not in a punitive after the fact kind of a way, but we have a 1-day experiential accountability workshop, which is designed to help individuals connect how they can own the experiences they create for others and to take ownership for their actions and the things that they're needing to achieve those desired outcomes. Effectively, it helps align your team to create a more productive and successful environment. So as we finish out today, you will see an opportunity here within a quick pop-up poll. If you'd like to learn more about how Culture Partners can help you in closing some of these skill-based gaps, whether it's through our business acumen training or accountability training, go ahead and chime into the poll, and we will make sure that we follow up with you and have some one-to-one conversations with you to better understand what you're looking for and how we can best help you in your organization. We'll leave that poll up for just a moment. I do want to open some time up to some Q&A. And Liz, maybe you can help me as you're starting to see things come through on the chat panel. Questions you would have, group, that I can help answer based on this very intentional focus that we're talking about.
Yeah, no, great questions kind of coming in. Keep them coming. We did have one really great question while people kind of type away. Mark had asked earlier on, how do you help people make that leap from learning a skill to actually applying it in decision making?
Yeah, so number one, Mark, we need people to connect the why of the skill. This is why we're working on the skill. I used crucial conversations or something else earlier as a focus area. And if in fact we're going to do a skill-based training, we absolutely need to begin with this idea of connecting the why for the individuals. Here's why we're doing this skill-based training, and it will impact this result in this way when applied. because if we're going to create greater levels of ownership, we don't need people to necessarily agree with everything we're asking them to work on from a skill-based training, but we do need them to be involved. And the path to involvement, as Simon Sinek often says, if you want people to buy in, allow them to weigh in. So there's a great opportunity to connect the why for people here. Thanks, Liz. What else are you seeing here? Yeah. I see there's a comment there in the chat panel about using the why in everything we do. Yeah, and that's a really powerful way to do that. Liz, other questions that have come up for you?
Yeah, Sarah had asked, how do you measure whether a skill initiative is actually improving business performance versus just driving participation or completion rate?
Yeah, great question, Sarah. So it begins by rethinking the way we as learning and development professionals approach the measurement of ROI. In other words, how do we now connect the skill to a specific outcome or business outcome? If in fact we're looking to increase customer SAT scores by 10%, how do we make that direct alignment for this particular training? One of the things I would suggest to you, Sarah, on this is there is an opportunity to continue to have that conversation up the leadership chain for what is it we are needing to accomplish in the business and what would be an appropriate measurement of success, not participation, but how can we determine? Sometimes it may be a survey. We see people do pulse surveys. We see people use specific numbers and they start with a baseline. If we're going to move customer satisfaction by 3 points, that would suggest to us that membership is going to grow. So we can begin to have some very quantitative measures that are beyond just attendance or participation. So I hope that helps, Sarah. Anything else, Liz, you're seeing from your side?
Yeah, we have one more. I think we have time for one more question. So Jennifer just put it into the Q&A. How do you get leaders to acknowledge that they need to create the experiences that allow employees to demonstrate in action? And then stated L&D cannot do it for them.
Yeah, this is probably the greatest question of the day here. A little bit save the best for last, perhaps, Liz. Not that the other two weren't awesome, but oftentimes we look at that and say, how do I get people to buy into this? How do I get a leader to buy into what it is we're trying to do? I will simply go back to this pyramid for just a moment. If we need a leader to hold a certain belief, we've got to start from this lens of what's the experience I need to create for that leader. I would also suggest to you that there's an opportunity to go and seek feedback from those leaders in advance about what experiences they would need to have in order to begin to reinforce these things that you're teaching within your skill-based learning. One of the missed opportunities for us as L&D leaders all the time is the opportunity to go and seek feedback from our leaders about what they are needing from their people and what they would be willing to reinforce so that we can make sure we're embedding that in the overall experience for our learners. So we have to ask up front of our leaders, and then we have to intentionally and specifically design experiences for them that reinforce the fact that we've heard them and we're addressing those things that they have. So thank you, Liz. I hope that answered those questions.
Beautifully said. Well, I think that's all we have time for. So is there anything else you would like to leave with the audience today before we wrap it up on our next break?
Yeah, I would say this team, skills-based learning is absolutely crucial and valuable when we can begin to look at it through a slightly different mindset of the delivery of skill-based learning is just an action. Ideally, when we can get to clearly defining experiences and the needed beliefs, it allows for us to have sustainability over time of those skills that we're already teaching in such a valuable and significant way. So thank you, Liz. Appreciate the time here today.
Of course. Thank you for your time as well. And there were a couple more questions, but we are out of time. So do not worry. The Culture Partner crew will be reaching out with you to address those pressing questions. But thank you so much, Vince, for today's session.
Thanks all.
Yes. And so for everyone else, we will be taking about a 14-minute break. Up next, we have an amazing panel for their session sponsored by the Regis Company, Designing Skills That Show Up at Work. So again, in a moment, I'm going to end this session. You can join our next session by returning to that event lobby and going to the session tab. So I hope you all stick around for our next session, which will begin at the top of the hour. I will see you all there. Bye, everyone.